It was a classic piece of Scottish heartache against Morocco. We will analyse what worked and what didn't. But fear not, we've only got Brazil up next. Hello, I'm Kenny Macintyre and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Monday the 22nd of June. Scotland were so close but fell to a narrow defeat against Morocco.
Feeling the beat in the offside trap, and there's an effort at goal and it's lashed in, and the goal is going to stand according to the assistant referee. Cy Barry once again from a tight angle.
We'll analyse what went right and what went wrong. Next up, we'll get the 5-time World Cup winners.
Had they started hot and won the first two games, then maybe they'd ease off against Scotland. Unfortunately, that is not the case. They're still looking to find a blend, and so they will be looking to be on the upward curve.
A point should be enough for Scotland, and narrow defeat may also suffice. What does Steve Clarke have to do to get us through to the knockout stage for the very first time?
These are the type of games that you want to be involved in, and there's a lot on the line, and we've worked extremely hard to be in this position that we're currently in, so we're desperate to do well in that game and make it a memorable night.
The Scottish Football Podcast.
Very good morning to you and our pundits, Andy Halliday and Scott Allan. Before we get stuck into the World Cup, I set you both a challenge yesterday. So you two were at primary school together. So Andy, you kick us off. What would the teacher's report card have said about Scott as a pupil?
A+ for PE and D- for everything else.
Right, I've got a feeling how this one might go, Scott. What would Andy's report card have said?
It would have been similar with the PE. I would have said I was a bit more brighter with the history and the maths than Andrew, to be fair. And I'm calling him Andrew because he slaughtered me last time for calling him it.
And in terms of your playing careers then, Andy, how would you sum up Scott as a player and what he achieved?
I think Scott was obviously a brilliant career and had a great career. I don't think he's your most atypical Scottish-based player. I think he was obviously somebody that likes to play in pockets of spaces, which he got in the half turn, very much a technician. And I do feel as if Scotty's career took a real upwards trajectory if he went abroad. And when you look at the amount of players that are Scottish-based that have went abroad over the last few years, obviously Lewis Ferguson and Aaron Hickey and Liam Henderson and Josh Doig, Kieran Bowie, all these guys that played in Italy, I do think that's something that could have really suited Scott. But that being said, he still had a fantastic career.
And for you, Scott, how would you sum up Andy's career?
Fantastic. I think obviously when you know someone such a long time, when you start off at mini kickers together at 5, you then go to the Rangers Academy from 7-8-year-old. Andy get picked. I didn't get picked. Andy stayed in at Murray Park till he was about 14, and then obviously moves on to Livingston and takes that little setback at that time. And I think going to Livingston was probably the best thing that ever happened to him. I think you look at 3rd division, playing up front, scoring goals, and then to get a move to Middlesbrough, I think it kind of tells you that what they were looking at Middlesbrough was all the things about his game that not everybody speaks about, and that is 1,000,000% for me. And his eye for goal and finishing, not spoken about a lot, but some of the goals he scored over his career probably don't get spoke about enough. And how actually quick he was over 5 yards. These are things that people don't really always associate when they talk about Andy. They think about him playing midfield and looking to play forward and kind of just keeping the game ticking over. But it's so much more in his game than a lot of people have gave him credit for. You look at the clubs he's played for as well. But probably the biggest one and the biggest compliment I can give is when he actually went to Rangers. And I remember at the time, because I think it was just before I moved to Celtic, but I was at Hibs off the back of a good season. And they had left England and they had the chance to go in on trial with Rangers. And I think a lot of people at that age think as soon as somebody mentions the word trial, it's like, I'm not going in trial, a wee bit of ego kicks in. And Andy had that real belief in himself that he could go in there on trial under Mark Warburton and win a contract. And he absolutely done that. And he was one of the first names on the team sheet that whole season with Mark Warburton. So I think Andy as a footballer deserves huge credit for that, because not many people would really back themselves to go to a club like Rangers on trial to start with and then manage to play the amount of games he did, managed to captain the team he supported, and then to continue that into his 30s, obviously going to Hearts, scoring some big goals against Hibs and finishing off. I know didn't play as much last season, but the season before, playing every game for Motherwell, I think deserves huge credit.
Brilliant to hear, guys. Fantastic. Glowing reports from you both and thoroughly deserved. So let's then talk about Scotland at the World Cup finals. Let's talk about that Morocco performance. A glowing report for you for that one. Andy, your thoughts on the performance?
Glowing report in terms of quality, no. Again, characteristics that you could label it a Scotland squad for a long time is that character and resilience. I do think they showed that again. But for me, I think with the players we've got, I wouldn't mind talking about that quality version of them a lot more, because I think we do have much more in the locker. I do think that coming into this World Cup, I felt as if Steve Clarke would have learnt lessons for the last two major tournaments, and I just think going into games would have had the handbrake off a little bit. Now, I'm not expecting us to be playing like Spain when I was watching them last night and play free-flowing football and counter-press high up the pitch and keep the ball for 30 passes before we try and have a shot and goal. I'm not expecting that whatsoever. But I do think with the group of players we've got, I'm just expecting that a little bit more on the ball. But to be honest, Kenny, a good bit more off the ball. I think when you're going to be this team that wants to almost sit in and frustrate and be compact and try and be as quick as you can on transitions, then I think we need to be a lot more aggressive when we've been off the ball. Because for me, I think we've got away with it in terms of the goals conceded against Morocco. I think we obviously only conceded one, which on the face of it, I mean, it's probably not going to be a bad result at all, because with this goal difference probability going through at the group stage. And then even against Haiti, I thought we were really passive out of possession. I thought we allowed Haiti loads of the ball. Far too easy for them to just kind of amble into a final third and make it difficult for them. Now in the Haiti case, I thought we defended our box extremely well. I don't think we defended our box against Morocco as well, but I thought we rode our luck a wee bit in terms of them not being as clinical as they possibly could have been. Now, am I expecting wholesale changes in the way we play against Brazil? No, I'm not. But again, especially in that out of position, I'd love to see us being a lot more aggressive than we've been.
Scott, what were your thoughts when you saw the team selection for the Morocco game?
I wasn't overly surprised, Kenny. I think I said on here on the day of the game that I felt that Kieran Tierney would play in front of Andrew Robertson in a 4-5-1. Steve Clarke is the sort of manager where he's more worried probably for me about not getting beat than actually going and winning the game. And I would echo what Andy says. You can totally understand that against Morocco and Brazil. I think it's off the back of the Haiti game for me where I just felt also unimaginative and that intensity that Andy talks about. You can sit in a low block and still be aggressive, and there's a point where once they reach here, when they make a square pass, can we go with real purpose and go and try and get the ball back off people? I don't see that in a performance. And then to top it off against Morocco, 70 seconds into the game plan's gone because you don't protect the space in behind, which would be the whole point against a team against like Morocco, who look to hurt you in behind, would be to protect that space. One of our most experienced players makes a bad decision and looks to play an offside trap when you just have to stay with the runners. So 70 seconds into the game, they're already in defensive shape, and then you're looking, right, are we going to go and create here? And if we're all being honest, we've watched enough of Scotland to know that we're not a hugely creative side, especially not when we have that many players behind the ball. So to come away with a 1-0, yes, on the face of it, it's, if you said, right, a win against Haiti and a slender loss against Morocco going into Brazil, you would probably take it. But I just think because of the kind of stage that we're at with a World Cup, and we know that we do have quality within the side, it's not unfair for us to expect a lot better on the ball. And that was my biggest thing going into Morocco. And can we be, yes, very solid defensively, but once we landed the ball, can we be a lot better? For large spells of the game, we weren't. We were loose again. Up until maybe the last 30 minutes where we started to creep up the pitch. But I actually thought a lot of that was down to Kenny McLean came on looking to play forward quick. So are we going to expect anything different against Brazil? The answer for me would be no, because we haven't seen any other sort of way that Scotland play. And I do feel sorry for the players at times, because I feel there's so much more in their locker. I feel like when we land in the ball, we never really know what the next pass is. And a lot of that comes down to how your structure is to maybe find your best players in attacking positions. The main topic will be, will Ben Doak play? I think Steve Clarke probably looks at that and goes, pulled cramping in about 65, 70 minutes against Haiti. Can we stay in the game up until the last 30 minutes and then unleash Ben Doak? And I just think that's how he sees the game. We talk about modern managers adapting. I don't think Steve Clarke's of the type to really adapt to the modern ways. He sees the game how he is. He will set his team up how he sees it and thinks he's got the best chance of a win. Whether we are overly entertained by watching it, I don't think he'll care too much as long as we progress into the knockout stages. But the fact that we could still lose 2 games and with a win that will win over Haiti and potentially make it into the knockout stages is incredible, really.
Yeah, I'm going to put that question to you a bit later on about is he getting enough out of what I hear constantly from pundits like yourselves, a very talented group of players. But just before we get to that, Andy, what actually was the game plan against Morocco? And talk to us about the role that was given to Kieran Tierney. Was he man marking? What was he doing?
Well, I don't obviously was on Sports Sound yesterday, Kenny, and that's exactly my kind of query when I look at that sort of that change in isolation with Kieran Tierney coming into the pitch. Because for me, when I seen Kieran Tierney play, I wasn't surprised at the expense of Ben and Doak, because I think if you're going to play that game plan against Morocco, and like Scott says, you need to then have a game plan when you do win the ball for that compact structure. How do you get up the pitch? Well, do you know what an easy one is? Give the ball to Ben and Doak, because he's going to be a ball carrier and he's going to get you 40, 50 yards up the pitch. If he's not playing and you don't have the individuals to be able to do that, then what does it look like after that? And I couldn't really see it. I thought we then got a bit panicky. We couldn't really connect 2-3 passes. I think the only time we did was we played a pass into Scott McTominay, who then played one round the corner to Kieran Tierney. But you've then got Kieran Tierney on transition, running 40, 50 yards at a back four where he's not comfortable. And that's not to Kieran Tierney's fault. That's just not one of his attributes. So I think when I seen then Kieran Tierney in the starting lineup, seen him deployed as that left midfielder, then you'd expect him to do either 2 things. Between him and Andy Robertson, double up on Hakimi to try and stop him, or for him to man mark Hakimi. I don't think he's done either. I thought Hakimi absolutely ran riot in the first half, as well as the rest of the Moroccan side. So I don't think that change worked. I think Kieran Tierney was basically playing as a wide midfielder out of possession and narrowing up and being really compact. But somehow, which this is what good teams do, they still find the spaces and still find a way to be able to play through you. And it wasn't really for me until we made the changes in the second half. And I don't think a whole lot changed in possession, Kenny, because I think the reason we had more of the ball is because Morocco sat off the game. But what changed was we were much more aggressive off the ball. I think every chance we created actually came from us putting pressure on the Moroccan players and turning the ball over at the top end of the pitch. And then for there, instead of having to travel 80 yards to goal, or travelling 15 yards to goal. And that was the only real change for me. So going into the Brazil game, I'm not expecting a huge difference, as I said, in possession. But I think out of possession, we can't just allow these top players time and space on the ball and make it easy for them to just feel their way into the game. I think for me, I just don't think we've made our mark in this World Cup yet in terms of how we are as a nation. I think we have all over the nation off the pitch. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. But on the pitch, I still think we can offer so much more.
Scott, talk to us about a player's mentality then, because if you were asked to play by a manager in any position, I guess you're going to say yes, particularly at a World Cup finals. But Kieran Tierney looked in a position there that was a bit alien to him. What's your experience of that? Have you been asked to play a role that you didn't feel comfortable, or what would that have been like for Kieran Tierney?
Well, if I'd been asked to sit off the game and play behind the bar, I'd been sat on the bench, Kenny. There's no getting away from that. No, I think what Hakimi did, so Kieran Tierney's obviously playing in that left midfield role. He thinks he's going to this game, right, just stay with Hakimi, make it really difficult. What Morocco did after about 3-4 minutes was the number 6 Bouadid, the 18-year-old, who's a fantastic player, dropped back into the back four. The right-sided centre-back went out to right mid, and Hakimi just went a free roll, and Kieran Tierney didn't know to go all the way. There was times he was out on the left, he was up front. Kieran Tierney didn't know if he was to go all the way in with him, and at times he did. Whereas normally in that kind of structure, you would just pass him on. But because the role that was probably given to Kieran Tierney was anywhere Hakimi goes, you go. But because of the level that Hakimi's at, he just took Kieran Tierney a walk at times. And that would have been a really difficult part for Kieran Tierney, because it's already a hard game enough. But when you have all this in your head that you're just going to track him back, try and stop crosses, and then he's out on the left and he's up front, and you aren't passing him on, there isn't communication there, that can become very difficult. And ultimately, Steve Clarke's put Kearney in a position where he couldn't affect the game either way, whether that was defensively or going forward. And I think that one Andy touched on, that McTominay plays round the corner to him, you can tell once he lands in the ball, because it's quite alien to be him to be on the last line of defence. I think he get ate up with one of the midfielders in about 4 or 5 strides. Then that's because that little bit of hesitation, because it's not a position he plays. He never played in the left midfield role for Celtic. He's usually one of the players who's arriving as the ball's been played into his pass, and then you can see his quality, and that's with his delivery. But you can't get away that we have to be so much better in possession, and that's the biggest frustration for me. I think Andy hits the nail on the head there. We haven't really showed or made our mark in the World Cup, because ultimately I don't think the players have been allowed to. I think they've been restricted in terms of how they've been asked to play at times. Yes, we can talk about the rankings of Morocco and Brazil, but any team in world football, you have to try and make it uncomfortable for them. You can't say that John McGinn's one of the most aggressive players in the Premiership, and that's putting pressure on people. Lewis Ferguson, for being the Bologna captain, has been out of possession very good for Scotland. But other areas of the park, it's just been so... It looks timid at times, and that to me is the structure, as if they're worried about the space in behind, as if they don't want to be the guy who jumps out of the slot, gets beaten a 1v1, and then he's at fault for causing the goal. But the last 30 minutes, as Andy says, once you go and put real contact on these players and unsettle them and don't let them just wander about the middle of the park with the chest out playing passes, you can create chances from it. And that looks to be our best way of creating chances now, and that is jumping at the right times, looking to steal the ball, and then going for the on the counter attack.
Well, let's talk a bit more about Andy, because you guys both touched on this earlier on. He's got us to 3 major finals, Steve Clarke. He's clearly done a good job in that regard. But time and again, I hear from pundits like yourself the quality we've got in the squad. Players playing at a very good level, competition for places. So do you think Steve Clarke is getting enough out of these players? And I wonder if the players get a bit frustrated sometimes with the tactics.
Well, listen, it's the first World Cup in 28 years. Like he says, it's 3 major tournaments in the last 4. So there's no doubt whatsoever that Steve Clarke will probably go down as the best Scotland manager of our generation. I mean, growing up, I don't really remember France 98 that well. So I'd argue that the 3 major tournaments I remember the most under Scotland are Steve Clarke in his era. But listen, maybe I'm a too much a perfectionist, which I shouldn't be, because I wasn't exactly perfect myself, that's for sure. But I do think with this group of players I do think we've got a lot more in the locker. I really do. And I think we've showed that in games, Kenny. Absolutely, I think we've shown that in games, albeit it was a preparation match. But that Bolivia game was almost perfection in terms of how we want to play, if we're going to play that way, in terms of sitting off the game. But when it goes into areas, we're extremely aggressive, and then when we win the ball back, we're trying to hit our strikers, and we've got runners for midfield, we've got runners for the wider areas, and once we combine 2 or 3 passes, it takes us all the way up the pitch. I remember the Spain game at Hampden, I remember the Denmark game at Hampden, where I think we won 2-0 when John Souttar scored the header for the corner. So there's been games for me where I think we've showed that we're a really, really good side. But forgive me for wanting to be entertained. You know, I can already hear people through the radio saying, "Oh, what you complain about with three major tournaments?" But we all fell in love with football because for us, it's the best sport in the world to watch. It's entertaining to watch. So as much as I want to see us get to major tournaments, I want it to be entertaining at the same time. And then see major tournaments, I want to see us have real belief that we can go deep in tournaments. Now, Morocco, as we said, they're a fantastic team, but I don't think they're much better than us in terms of individuals. I really don't. And they got to a World Cup semi-final by not only having good individuals, but being extremely well coached. And I think if we just get that 10% more out of the group, and that's all it is for me, I think we can go deep in this tournament. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, you can get yourself in a real twist looking at the probabilities of what it takes to go through, and then who we've got in the last 32 and then the last 16. But when I'm looking at some of the teams that we could potentially get if we go through, there's absolutely nothing to suggest we can't go far in this tournament. I think the last time I checked, the probability in the last 32 was either Mexico and Sweden. Mexico will be extremely difficult, especially in the Azteca with the altitude and the heat there. But if we're playing Sweden in the last 32, who just lost 5-1 to Holland, who finished bottom of their qualifying group, and then the potential of the last 16 at South Korea or Switzerland. Now, I'm saying that if we play better, if we play at the levels that we played against Morocco in 80, I don't think we've got a chance against Sweden. If we increase in percent, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but there's no doubt for me whatsoever we can go far in this tournament.
That's the interesting thing for me, Scott, what Andy's just said there, because we have been frustrated with these performances, and I think we got away with it a lot in the qualifying campaign as well. Some of the performances were really, really poor, you'd have to say, but we found a way. Is there a frustration for you as well because of the quality we have and the potential of the squad?
And that is the word that I'm watching the other night, and that's my overriding feeling. And I felt that way after the Haiti game, and I shouldn't have been, because the length of, in fact, no, I should be able to feel frustrated in fact, because I don't think that we should be sharing possession with teams like Haiti. I think we should have been the team on the front foot with the quality that we're obviously speaking about. So that I have felt frustration, because I know there's a lot more in the side, especially through the midfield area. And it's in modern day football, if you can control the midfield, then it gives you a real good foundation to go and create chances. My biggest thing is, we're talking about knockout stages, we just don't create enough chances. We just don't. Anything that we're going to create looks like it's going to be off the cuff, whether that's then go long to Lyndon Dykes who comes on, it's a flick on, and then you get McTominay and McGinn looking to run beyond, which isn't, there's nothing wrong with that. My problem is there's nothing that looks deliberate in terms of patterns to consistently get our good players on the ball, and that's one thing I'd say I haven't seen from this Steve Clarke Scotland team. Nothing's really consistent. I think we're always set up to stop the other team playing, which is, there's two parts of football, in and out of possession. But for me, we have to be a lot more creative and a bit more inspiring. I think that's the biggest thing, that when you set up like that, does that take a bit of belief away from the players, because you then start thinking, oh, we're playing Morocco, we better sit off a game, they're really good. We're good, we can be really good. But when you're constantly sat off the game and you're passive, players go into a certain mindset where they start to worry instead of that real belief about going and creating, scoring goals. And my big concern is we just don't create enough chances. Where's that slip pass going to come from? Unless Gannon Doak's on the pitch, we don't look like we're going to hit the byline and get across in the box. And between the three strikers, it'll be a lucky dip to see who Steve Clarke goes with on Wednesday night.
Yeah, we'll get your team in just 1 minute, Scott. But who for you has been the standout player for Scotland at these finals so far?
I would say I think Lewis Ferguson's acquitted himself really well, and I must say Jack Henry I think's been excellent over the two games. He looks to drive out with the ball and try and release players. I'd say they two for me have been the standouts, and obviously I touched on Kenny McLean earlier. I think he came off the bench and he was excellent against Morocco.
Right, Andy, give me your starting 11 and formation against Brazil. What's going to get it done for us?
I would go for the 4-4-1-1 formation, and I'm probably expecting us to sort of sit in the mid block, but I'm expecting and hoping that we're a lot more aggressive when it goes into certain areas, because if you allow Brazil time and space to get their head up and to feed balls in behind to Vinicius Junior and Cunha, I think you're in trouble. So I think Aaron Hickey would come back into the side for me. That's if he's fit, of course. I think at left back, Andy Robertson. I would make a change at centre half. Scott McKenna would come in. I think we need a lot more athleticism at the back than Grant Hanley can currently give you. He's been a fantastic servant for Scotland, 70 caps. But I think at this moment in time, I think there's better options to play at that centre half role. So for me, I would go with Grant Hanley. And then McKenna, for me, has probably been Scotland's most outstanding performer. I think he's been excellent over the two games. And then in the midfield, I would go Ben Gannon-Doak on the right, John McGinn on the left. I would go Kenny McLean or Ryan Christie, but I would probably still edge towards Ryan Christie for the start with Lewis Ferguson, and I would go Scott McTominay off of Che Adams.
For you, Scott?
Gunn, Hickey. I would keep the two centre backs, as much as I think Hanley's poor for the first goal against Morocco. After that, I think he done okay. I think he then recovered quite well. He defended quite well and crosses came in the box. So I'd still go Henry, Hanley, Robertson, my two in front, Kenny McLean and Ferguson. I just think Kenny's experience in there, and I'm looking at how we've performed the last two games. I think we need a lot better use of that midfielder when you are in that low block. I think Kenny's probably your best player there for taking a touch and then looking to find a pass forward quickly. So I would go Kenny and Fergie in front of them, McTominay, McGinn as well I had on the left, and Ben Gannon-Doak on the right, and I'm going to go Che Adams up top.
Yeah.
But I think he'll go Dykes.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You know, if we've got that lone striker role, if we look at the three main strikers we have, is Che Adams best equipped for that? Is Lyndon Dykes not a better option, do you think, for that role?
Well, I think the way Steve Clarke will look at it is, if you are under pressure and you have to clear long at times, you get more chance of then recovering a second ball if it's going up to Lyndon Dykes, because he's got that spring and he's decent in there, and he'll look to try and bring guys into the game. So yeah, it's probably a good shout, Kenny, in terms of that. I don't think we're going to see Scotland really playing through the thirds as such. So the one thing when you're under pressure, you have to have an out ball. We've got that in Bengan and Doakwee's pace, and maybe Lyndon Dykes just gives us that aerial presence that maybe gets us up the pitch a lot better than a Che Adams does.
Why does Che Adams get the nod for you as well, Andy? What does he offer up there in the lone striker role?
I think he's the use of his body, Che Adams, for not being as tall as a Lyndon Dykes. I think is extremely good, and I think he's got that turn of pace. I think he can play on the last line, which I also think is important if you're. Like he says, if you're trying to turn the ball over and you're trying to hit the space quickly, I just don't think Lyndon Dykes has got the pace anymore to play on that last line and to get on the end of things. And it's easy to say, no, hit the ball up to Lyndon Dykes and try to get on flick on. But when Scotland turn the ball over, you'll have Brazilian players pressing them within 2 or 3 seconds. So it's not as if they can lift their head up and directly find Lyndon Dykes with a pass. I think it will almost be a clearance at times. So I think Che Adams' pace and being able to sort of I think a lot difficult. And again, Lyndon Dykes is another one for me who's had a fantastic Scotland career and done so much for Scotland under Steve Clarke specifically. But, I mean, if you remember when we were talking about a squad to pick, I never had Lyndon Dykes in my squad because I think there's better options at the striker position for Scotland than Lyndon Dykes. Now, I then said I can understand why Steve Clarke would take him due to this club mentality. There's no doubt we can see, and everyone talks about, and almost that loyalty that, you know, Lyndon Dykes has been there for such a long period of time. He never made the last Euros due to injury. So I can see why we take him to be around the place and be a help. But that's not been the case. He's actually there to be almost the second choice striker because he came off the bench for 2 games. When we've made changes, a goal against Morocco, Steve Clarke decided Lyndon Dykes was that better option over a Longshank or a Ross Stewart, which I've found supremely surprising. And then when Ross Stewart comes off the bench in the 88th minute, you're sitting scratching your head saying, I mean, how has Longshank not been in this game on that pitch? And Lyndon Dykes is playing on the left wing. So we've went for Kieran Tierney playing in the left wing, which was an uncomfortable position to him, to Lyndon Dykes being out there for the last 5 minutes or so. So for me, there's no doubt anyone as a long striker would be Che Adams.
What about the mindset of the players, Scott, going into this game? Because a draw would, you think, definitely get us through to the knockout stage. Potentially so would a 1, 2, 3 goal defeat. You know, can that come into the players' heads at all?
Yeah. There's no getting away from it. I think the players will be aware of the stipulations and how they can get through. But at the same time, I think John McGinn spoke after the game about maybe playing a bit more front foot. So I think the players, yes, they are set up to go out and play a certain way, but at times they have to be brave as well and recognise the patterns in games and how they can maybe get a bit of luck. I think there's no getting away from it. This isn't a fluid Brazil team by any stretch of the imagination. Look at the teams we've seen. In my time, they don't have the same flair out with Vinny Junior. For me, Rafinha, I know, came off at the end of the game, so he could be a doubt. Neymar's back in the squad. Neymar isn't the same player he was, but he still possesses that individual brilliance. But Vinny Junior is the man you have to stop, and that's why that's an area of the part where you think you'd expect real pressure to be on the ball, and then if Vinny Junior does obviously skip by one of the right backs, your right centre backs out to then engage with him after that, and one of the midfielders across, this is going to be key. He is their main threat. See in the middle of the park, we've got more energy and more enthusiasm in the middle of the park than Brazil have, and that is a route where we have to try and exploit. And whether that's Lyndon Dykes coming on and that ball does go up to him at times, I would expect McTominay and John McGinn's coming off the side and Bengan and Doak to really look to overrun them in the middle of the park. They aren't full of legs in the middle of the park by any stretch of the imagination, and that is an area where we could potentially hurt them. You look at Marquinhos and Gabriel, 2 top draw centre backs played in the Champions League final. Morocco made 2 passes and were in behind the 2 of them, right through the ball, right through the middle. So they aren't free flowing like we've seen for Brazil. So if we can get that real energy out of possession and then be so much better on the ball and a bit braver. And a lot of that on this game, for me, lands on the players being a bit braver and want to take a bit of risk. And there's no reason why we can't get a really positive result for me.
So, it's prediction time now. Only rule here is no messing about. You can kick us off with the answers. Andy, Scott will follow. Remember, there's loads of World Cup content and podcasts across the BBC, including the Scottish Football Podcast. Just search World Cup on the BBC Sounds app. So, kick us off, Andy. Will Scotland go through?
Yes, I do think we'll go through. I think we'll lose the game against Brazil. I think we'll lose the game by probably a 2-goal margin, but I think we'll have to take us through.
Scott?
Yeah, it's harder not to go through, Ken. It's harder not to go through, Ken. Yeah, I think it'll either be a 0-0 or a 1-0 Brazil.
Yeah, I do think what some of the former players think who are part of great Scotland squads that never made it and how tough it was for them when the tournament wasn't expanded. It was your top two. I want to know what they think about this, how much easier it is now, but let's hope we can take advantage of that. So, your World Cup moment so far, Andy?
Lionel Messi. See him still being able to do what he's doing at 39 years of age. I actually had a slight concern coming into the tournament that will there be too much expectation on Lionel Messi given what he done at the last World Cup? But he's 4 years older. He's been playing the MLS for the last few years. Argentina have a couple of young superstars and Nico Paz coming through and Thiago Almada. So I'm actually questioning, would he play 90 minutes every week that he usually does? And could he even come close to replicating what he's done in the past? And the best player of all time does what he does. He showed it already in the opening 90 minutes with his hat-trick.
For you, Scotty?
I get asked this question during the weekend and I said Lionel Messi as well. Just an absolute genius. I think we're now at the stage now where the argument over Ronaldo v Messi is settled. Messi is still playing the same way he played when he was 16, and to do that at the age he is incredible. He's still the only player in the world who most of the players can't do the things he does, and we still at the age of 38 get to enjoy how much a genius that little man is. So for me, Lionel Messi as well.
I'll give you a quick one just from the programme on Friday night. Neil McCann was on with us and he was saying that he went down to one of the vendors, to get a drink before kick-off in the stadium, and the vendor had pulled out of his pocket a bit of paper, and on that bit of paper he had written down all the words to Flower of Scotland. He was so blown away by that for the Haiti game. He said he was going to go out onto the concourse and he was going to join in with the Scotland fans. He just couldn't believe the passion of it. I love these stories like that. And as you guys have said, the impression the Scotland fans have made out at the finals. So, again, this may change for you guys over the course of these podcasts. Who's winning the World Cup, Andy?
Yeah, I've seen no reason to come off of France just now. I think the favourites going into the tournament, I felt, were France, Spain and Argentina. And I think all three of them are still probably remain my favourites. I think a couple of surprises in there could be a Mexico. I think a Mexico could go far in the tournament, but I'm going to go France for now.
Scott?
I'm going to go Spain. I think that little slip with the Cape Verde game early doors is sometimes one of the best things that could happen to the big nations. We've seen it with Argentina, with Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And I looked at Spain last night. It was just total domination of the football, and I still don't think they're up and running as much as their fluent selves usually are. So I think Spain will only get better as this tournament gets on. Lamine Yamal obviously will get fitter. Nico Williams will obviously be back up to match sharpness, and I just feel Spain in terms of their football, fantastic.
Right, and just give us this one together then, Andy, and then Scott will follow. And you've been consistent certainly with the second part of this, hero and villain.
I'll change off Lionel Messi with the hero part, and I will go Lamine Yamal. I think seeing the way he plays football as a teenager is just a joy to watch. I think coming into the Spain game last night, he was the real difference maker for Spain. But no matter where he picks up the ball, just always try to be positive and try and influence the game. My villain for the get-go has been Cristiano Ronaldo, and I don't see any reason to change that. I think there's quite a lot of friction in the Portuguese national side as well. I think a lot of that is down to that sort of stardom that comes along with Cristiano Ronaldo. I think a lot of Portugal fans think that Cristiano Ronaldo's been let down by his teammates. For me, I think it's the opposite.
Scott, hero and villain?
Hero for me will be Leo Messi. See the video. I don't know if you've seen it, Kenny. I'm walking out before the game with all the players behind him, but he looks like a superhero. I looked at that and that is incredible. And for me, he start with. I thought it was going to be Thomas Tuchel, but after watching England in the second half, I think he could potentially be a hero for their performance in the second half. But I then went with Cristiano Ronaldo as well. I think that we're at a stage now where you can see that how he plays is now affecting some of the fantastic players round about them. So for me, Cristiano Ronaldo will be the villain.
Good stuff, thanks guys. We'll see how it all pans out. That's all we've got time for. Many thanks to Andy Halliday and to Scott Allan and to you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every single day. So to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on your phone. Just 2 days to go to the big one against Brazil. Plenty more build up to come as ever. BBC Radio Scotland has you covered. Bye for now.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.